Today we have another Friday Farm Report here on Locked On Mets as we are going through our top 20 prospects with my guy Jordan Grossman, who comes on for these farm reports. I'm your host Ryan Finkelstein. Today we are going through numbers 15 through 11 on our top prospect list, talking about guys like Jaylen Palmer, Carlos Cortez, Nick Plummer, and others. And we will continue this for the next couple of weeks until we get to our top 5 prospects in the Mets system. Again, today, 15 through 11.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another Friday Farm Report. I got Jordan Grossman here. Jordan does social media for us at Locked On Mets. He also comes on with us on Fridays throughout the season and in the offseason to talk prospects. And over the next couple of weeks, we are going through our top 20 lists. We just finished recording our episode that you would have already watched as this goes live for the previous week, as we went from 20 to 16. So make sure you check that out. Either on your podcast feed or on YouTube. And now we are going to go from 15 to 11 as we get closer to the Mets top 10. We're going to start off with your 15th ranked prospect, Robert Dominguez. I had him at 14, so pretty much in line with you. A prospect that just has stuff that pops that needs a lot of refinement.
Oh yeah, I know. We talked about Joel Diaz last week. I mentioned the upside with him. Um, it's just Dominguez has the control issues. He gave up, I think, 11 runs in like 12 innings this year with the FCL. It's not really a big sample size, so you can't judge too much off of it. He's a kid who just came stateside. Mets love him. They didn't give him a ton of money, but he's really developed into something that they think can be, a real legit top of the line starting pitcher in a couple of years. The fastball is 98, 99. It has real late life to it. But yeah, it's all about the control with him, because the breaking stuff is there. Has good breaking. It's just all about control with him because I think he also gave up 9 walks in 10 innings. So, and the reason I had him, I had him 10th last year on my list and I dropped him down to 15, not because I'm necessarily down on him, but it's because like I said, the sample size wasn't big, and I got to see a bigger sample size from other players, and just their seasons impressed me a lot more. So that's why I dropped them a little bit this year.
We're going to talk, on this show today about Dominic Hamill and Calvin Ziegler. They have, it's interesting because I've referenced a lot how the Mets, they have 6 picks in the top 100 this year in the next upcoming draft, how they have to focus on pitching. I don't know how it slipped my radar, but like their first 3 or 4 picks, I guess the first 3 picks in the last draft for pitching, it was Rocker, Ziegler, Hamel. They're clearly focusing on pitching. And even though we talk so much about this being a pitching thin system, as I was going through this exercise of going through the top 20, there's some arms that are actually starting to excite me a bit. Dominguez is one where I feel like it's going to take a lot of time potentially before we see him. I mean, he could be a guy that's in the minors, for who knows, a couple more years. We might not see him until 2024, 2020. Who knows how far out until we see him. But when it comes to developing like the next closer, I mean, that's just what you try to dream about when you watch this kid because of his size, because of that stuff. And you just hope he can get to a point where he can control it so the walk rates aren't crazy and the strikeout rates will continue to climb and he can be a really dominant reliever one day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you can get an elite reliever out of Dominguez, that's a huge win for the Mets because with so many of these teenagers, you just don't know. You really don't know what they're going to be. Like you said, they're going to spend a lot of time in the minor leagues working on their control, working on their secondary pitches. So you just never really know. And if you can get that kind of level of a 1-2 WAR reliever, that's really impressive and should be the Mets player development team should consider that a huge win.
Absolutely. And on the other end of the spectrum, you talk about, plus stuff, reliever to Adam Oller. And we talked about him last week or 30 minutes ago, depending on where you're sitting. Um, I don't want to spend too much time reiterating what we talked about on the last show, so people can check that out to hear more about Aller. We've talked about him more than a lot of prospects since you've been doing the Friday Farm Report with me. But I had him at 15 just to reflect, his impact on the Mets in 2022. I just think that there's a really good chance that we see him. Let me actually ask you this one: if I set the over under at 7.5 starts in 2022, do you take the over or the under on Adam Mahler?
Hey, listen, you're triggering my sports gambling mind right now. I get, New York just opened their sports betting, so I'm constantly seeing these lines. I
That's a
like
good
thinking
line, I feel
they'll.
like, man. I
Yeah,
think
that is
seven and
that
a
is a
half.
good that is a good line. That you actually had me thinking for a second. If you had it a little bit lower, I would have easily gone over. But 7.5, that's a
It's
I don't
right there.
know.
It's a month, right? It's like a month and a half, or like a month where you
Seven starts or 7 appearances? 7.5.
see. I think honestly, if you phrase it that way, I'd say appearances. I'd take the over. If it was starts, I
Yeah,
would probably take the under,
exactly,
right? Because
exactly.
yeah,
See, if
he could be being one of the arms on the 40. You're right. He could be a guy that is just like that arm in the back of your bullpen during a doubleheader that like comes in for
exactly.
mop up duty, right?
Hmm.
So that does change. Yeah, I think if we say starts, I would probably take the under. But again, you never know. I mean, nobody had Tyler McGill making what did he make 20 starts this year, or I think north of 15. No
Yeah,
one had that. You set the over under at 5.5 starts for McGill. No one would have taken it, but he showed up and he performed. I think that's going to be the thing is if and when Aller gets his chance, injury is most likely providing him that opportunity. Once he gets to that rotation, he would have, if he goes out and he performs, maybe he could stick around and get more starts than we're anticipating.
yeah. Listen, I don't want to be a guy that's a pessimist about the Mets rotation because I am excited about the upside they have. But you have three guys in their mid 30s with DeGrom, Scherzer, and Carrasco.
Yep.
You have a guy with Taiwan Walker who's had injury concerns in the past. He quelled some of those concerns last year, but they're still obviously there. So if Aller has to step in and make 7, 8 starts, it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world.
It wouldn't be. I mean, look, it's him or Budo beyond the guys that we know are going to contribute. I just did a podcast at this point as people are watching this a couple weeks ago, but as you and me are recording this a couple days ago on Peterson and McGill, and you just those guys, the range of outcomes of how their seasons are going to play out. I could see both of them in Syracuse all year, or I could see both of them in the Mets starting rotation all year because Carrasco never pitches and Walker just gets blown up. Like you could just see the scenario where those guys become fixtures. So that's where an Aller will potentially be asked to really carry the load a little bit. So we'll see what happens with him. This is the time of year where most of us start to give up on our New Year's resolutions. But if you're trying to stick to them this year and you want to eat right, it's very simple to do that with Built Bar because these are protein bars that taste like candy bars. So you're actually going to enjoy eating them. I know I do. I also love their new puffs, which are the first ever protein infused marshmallows. They're fluffy. They got that great marshmallowy texture, but they're not just a protein bar. They're a treat. They come covered in 100% real chocolate. There's flavors like cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. If you go to the Built Bar flavors, you have mint brownie, coconut almond, and new this month, they're brand new white chocolate cookies and cream. So delicious. Again, every single Built Bar comes covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low in calories, they're high in protein. You can replace those candy bars. This is the snack to resort to if you want to stick to those resolutions of eating healthier. If you want to try Built Bar today, go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15. You're going to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Let's move over now to Dominic Hamill. I think, did Jacob Resnick have him? I think he has him in the top 10, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Somewhere there, yeah, like right there.
Yeah, so some people are he's one of these prospects that is starting to garner a lot of attention. Third round pick last year. The fastball playing up in the zone, he's like a spin rate darling. This guy's interesting, man. He's a really interesting starting pitching prospect I think the Mets have here.
Yeah, listen, I know Tommy Tanis, the Mets director of scouting. He was the one who, he mentioned the analytics department having more guys in that department because of Ben Zausmer, their assistant GM and director of R&D. They really emphasize spin rate when looking at pitchers. There's another guy, Calvin Ziegler, that we're going to talk about this episode, that he has a lot of really good spin on his pitches. That was an emphasis for them in this past draft, and Hamel is probably one of the best when it comes to spin rate. Spin darling, that the term you mentioned, that's a really good way to put it. All three of the fastball, slider, and curve have elite spin rate. The fastball gets up to 97. That's really where that's his number one pitch, far and away. He gets a ton of strikeouts where it rides high in the zone. He's someone that's probably a 4 or 5 starter upside, but someone who I'm really excited to see what he does this year.
You know what? I would almost give him a tick above 4 or 5 upside for one reason alone. This kid's got swag. Have you seen some of the highlights? The way he's dancing on the mound after strikeouts. There's something about demeanor that I like. So I was a big fan of Marcus Stroman for that exact reason. Some of these guys, I almost hold them in a higher regard simply because they're fun to watch. And this kid looks like someone that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he's a Marcus Stroman with less of a presence on Twitter. I just that would be great.
We'll see what happens with that. I have yet to see any post from Hamel, so he's on a good start when it comes to that. I have him at 13. You had him at 14. We already talked about Dominguez. I had him at 14. We get to number 13, who we talked about last week, or again 30 minutes ago, Carlos Cortez. Again, people can like Aller, go back and watch that to see more of a full breakdown here. But you said that you would maybe you had him in consideration for the top 10. What do you see his season looking like? He spent the whole year in Double A, if I'm not mistaken. I would imagine he starts in Triple A, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I see no way where he goes back to Binghamton. He had too strong of a season there. I know he struggled a little bit in the Arizona Fall League, but I'm not going to put too much emphasis on that because of the year he had, like I said, in Double A. He strikes me as a guy who's probably going to have, Guillermo when he first started coming up to the majors. He was up and down a lot when they had injuries to the bench, when they had injuries to the starting lineup. He's a guy that's probably going to play 40, 50 games in the majors this year, but mostly going to be in Syracuse. He's going to spend a lot of time on that bus from New York City to Syracuse.
He's not on the 40 yet, is he?
You know what? You're actually going to make me check right now because I'm kind of curious.
I can't remember if they put him on. This is another reason
I'm
why
fairly certain he is.
He is? Okay. Yes, it's another, I still just wonder, how this whole bench is going to shake out because like I look at a Carlos Cortez and just for function on a bench, like I see JD Davis, Dominic Smith, and Robinson Cano right now, and all of them could fill in, and you could see him starting for the Mets in the right situation. But as bench pieces, it's just this bench is not very flexible. So I see someone like Cortez, which is good to have a guy that I think again will profile to be a little more utility once it gets to the big leagues, and that could help the Mets a lot.
Yeah, I actually stand corrected. He's not on the 40-man roster.
Okay,
so my mistake.
Blankenhorn still there?
Blankenhorn is still there. He is still there.
There you go. So I think that's the eventual move, right? At some point, Blankenhorn will get DFA'd and claimed somewhere, and then maybe that'll clear that spot that's kind of in his. I would say Blankenhorn probably would be like the guy that would be like in his way when it comes to the 40.
Yeah, they share the same exact kind of role on the team.
Yeah. And look, Blankenhorn had his moments, man. Blankenhorn, again, we didn't neither of us have him in the top 20. I feel like it's weird when you see a guy to put him in the top 20, especially someone like Blankenhorn that was kind of found money last year. But like I could see Blankenhorn having an interesting little role for the Mets next season. I mean,
absolutely, yeah. You could see him getting 100 bats, 150 at bats, and being a semi-important bench player.
Got some pop, man. He has, and I mean, just already.
Listen, he's no Billy McKinney pop, but
yeah, that's right. But I mean, his name is Blankenhorn, and that's gonna go a long way with Mets fans.
80 grade name.
80 grade name, absolutely. All right, so we are at number 12. We have come across another prospect we both had at the exact same point on our list, Calvin Zeigler. Second round pick this past year, basically because the Mets top pick after they had failed to sign Kumar Rocker. Uh, a really, really interesting prospect. Again, spin rate, I think, was like the first thing out of anyone's mouth when they drafted him. Um, just a guy that could profile as a decent starting pitcher for the Mets in the future here.
Yeah, when Ziegler got drafted, a lot of people were surprised because he was more expected in the fourth or fifth round, but the Mets really liked his upside. He's a bit of an unknown. He came from Canada. He spent the year in Florida, trying to build up his draft stock, pitching against more developed hitters. In Canada, he was just destroying everybody. So he came for a bit of more of a challenge down south. And he did. He impressed a lot. He hit the fastballs up to 97, like you said. The spin rate's there. Um, Fastball rides up to 97. Huge spin on the breaking pitches too. The slider is low 80. It flashes plus. So yeah, he's a guy. He's still a little bit of an unknown, but someone that the Mets are really high on, and I'm excited to see him. Probably going to be extended spring training to start the year. I don't think he pitched for the organization yet. Yeah, he's someone who's definitely an exciting name. I know, the Kumar Rocker stuff still hurts me, but
Yeah.
hopefully he can live up to being the new number one pick in the 2021 draft for the Mets.
It is, and I just wonder how much different we look at the Mets farm system if Kumar Rocker was in it. Uh, yeah, you're right, man. It's still just mentioning it. It does really hurt because I mean, no doubt would he be in the top 10 of almost all of our lists and just close. I mean, that's the thing about Rocker. So close to the big leagues. I mean, this is a guy that you could have seen, impact the 2022 Mets at the end of the season if everything broke right. And now he's just going to be sitting on his hands waiting it out. Sucks for him too.
Mhm.
Obviously the Mets were concerned about the medical.
And
And
they were right about the medical.
yeah,
They were right. I saw a nugget from Prospects Live that they retweeted an article where the manager of Vanderbilt, where Rocker played, he mentioned that he had a quote where he was I don't these aren't the exact words, but he mentioned something along the likes of Rocker is on the road to getting healthy and he's going to be pitching soon, which implies that he was hurt. He was
yeah,
not healthy. And even though Scott Boras said he's 100% healthy when he was negotiating with the Mets found something in the MRI that they didn't like. And most of the time, these things work out in the team's favor. Brady Aiken was a big name. He was a number one pick a few years ago. He had an elbow problem, and now I don't even know if he's in the minor leagues anymore because he had that shoulder problem and an elbow problem. So, Rocker was the same situation. The Mets still wanted to sign him, but just not for the $6 million that they originally offered. And it seems like they were right to do that.
yeah, and it's a significant investment. And really, the other thing too, I actually, even though the Mets have made it seem like there was a lower number that might have worked when it came to negotiations, I honestly think that when they found the thing in the medical, I almost feel like that bonus evaporated almost entirely because I think that they really saw more value in the pick the next year. It's like, do you want this injury risk or do you want a pick that's, I mean, what do you know what when that comp pick's going to come in? It's like 14 or something like that, right?
No, oh yeah, the comp pick is 14th, and then the Rocker pick is going to be 11th.
Yeah. So
Well,
okay,
no,
okay.
yeah, sorry. The comp pick is 11th, and the Mets draft pick, where they are supposed to be, is 14th.
So there you go. So that's more valuable to them, and I guess we can't really judge it until we see who they pick. Once they make that selection, I guess we'll have a better understanding of what to take from the Rocker situation. But it is definitely still disheartening for Mets fans that saw billboards and were just on cloud nine when the pick was announced.
Oh yeah, it hurts because he could have been a guy that was in the major leagues by the end of 2022. He could have been an August, September call up if he really just destroyed his way through Double A, Triple A. He's a guy who was ready if he was healthy. He's like ready. Yeah, probably the proximity to the majors was a big deal for them, and he would have been there. He would have been a big name. The Vanderbilt, that rotation with Jack Leiter drew a lot of fans.
And with all those cracks early in the draft, don't be surprised if the Mets get another college pitcher this year early to try to
Oh, the
fill that
the
role.
college pitching is not great this year. It's early, but I've been keeping an eye on the college pitching. A lot of guys are getting hurt, and a lot of names are dropping out. The things to keep an eye on this year are college hitting and high school pitching.
All right. Well, I was wrong, but I'm not
It's
keeping
early.
tabs on
Listen,
that.
you, you,
Yeah.
you have an entire spring to evaluate, but so far it's the college pitching isn't looking great so far.
This is why I have you on for our Friday farm reports because you are paying attention to that stuff. So I appreciate that. There might be less football being played, but betonline.net has way more stuff to bet on this playoff season. From scores, totals, player performance props to where the next fire coach is going to land, BetOnline is the number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022, and it's not just football. BetOnline.net's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your number one online wagering destination. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play all your favorite games. Bet online, where the game starts. Let's now get to number 11. Jaylen Palmer was your number 11 prospect. Now I am blanking on exactly where I had. I think I might have had 9. But regardless, this is a player again. We've spent a lot of farm reports talking about Jaylen Palmer. He put up monster numbers in low A, struggled a little bit when he got promoted, but still, I mean, this is a guy. I don't know if you heard Arm. I mean, Arm was raving about Palmer when he saw him on video. This is a prospect that it's going to be a big year for Jaylen Palmer this year. Seeing that high A for a full season, he'll be one of like the marketed stars in Brooklyn, right? Like I think those are games that you've been out there that are pretty well attended. He's got a chance here to have a really big year where he can really change that or not even change, but continue to assert himself as a prospect and maybe be like a consensus top 10 prospect by the end of the year.
Oh yeah, I'm very high on his raw tools. He's one of the strongest hitters in the system in terms of exit velocity. He's consistently putting up 100-mile-per-hour plus exit velo. I've mentioned it a few times on other podcasts. He was hitting absolute rockets in St. Lucie. He came up to Brooklyn, struggled a little bit. I think he hit right around 200 in like 35 games, which isn't great. But, it was probably a little bit nervous. It's a hometown kid. He's from Brooklyn, so playing at home, it's probably a little bit of an adjustment for him. So I'm not really going to take those numbers too seriously. He's going to start the year again, and in Brooklyn, yeah, he's going to be the main name on that team until Matt Allen comes back. Hopefully he can pitch in 2022, coming off that Tommy John surgery. But yeah, he's going to be the main hitter in that lineup. And he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I know. Yeah, I saw the episode with you and Arm, and I'm just as high on him as Arm was. He's a really impressive hitter.
He is, and yeah, actually, something just came into my mind when you mentioned that. Those early struggles, we a lot of times forget just the personal aspect of these guys going about their business, and I do wonder, like, I don't think that you can discount what could have all the other factors that could have played into some early struggles. You get that promotion. I'm sure his family and everyone out there, his friends, are probably thrilled that he got that call up. There's more pressure because of that. You also have a move that you have to deal with. A lot of things can get factored into the equation there. And then also, by the way, you're seeing that jump from low A to high A. That's a significant jump when it comes to the prospects you're squaring off against. So yeah, I wouldn't draw too much from those numbers. He's one of those guys that it's almost like a different list that we could do, like top 5 prospects to watch in 2022 in the Mets system. To me, he would be like on that list of guys
Oh yeah.
that I'm really curious to see how he holds up this year and the type of numbers he can have in the season he has.
Oh yeah, like you mentioned, he's probably had family and friends there every single night coming to see the Cyclone just because of how excited they were that when you're in low A, it's Port St. Lucie. There's
I've been there.
there's no one there's
There's
no one
no
really
one.
out there.
There's
Yeah,
no
it's
one.
only on dollar beer nights. It's the one night you really see people.
Not even, not
Um,
even. It's bingo night because the old people show up for the bingo night. So you need bingo night. You get a nice crowd of 65 seniors who are 65 and older, who are just waiting for the between innings entertainment. It's a little different than Coney Island with the roller coaster behind the outfield and your friends and
it's
family
such a
there.
it's such a good time.
Yeah, I got to get
I
out there at some point this summer, and who knows? Maybe that's all we could watch because maybe it'll just be minor league baseball this year, uh, and no major league baseball with the lockout. I'm curious. I saw someone recently was talking about this. The AAA season is looking like 150 games now. Um, like, do you think that this is like I saw someone trying to make the argument like this is good for minor league baseball? Because there could be more eyeballs on it if the lockout really extends. I do wonder how that's going to play out. Like, is ESPN going to pick up AAA games like they did with the KBO?
So so here's the thing. It's good, definitely for minor league attendance, but here's the caveat is that a lot of 40-man guys
Yep.
are on AAA rosters. And the problem is that the lockout is for all 40-man players, no matter if you're in the minor leagues or the major leagues. So guys like Mark Vientos, guys like Ronnie Mauricio, guys like Adam Oller, you can't see them pitch because they're on the 40-man roster. They're part of the Major League Baseball Player Association. So they're ineligible to play. And it's a little bit disappointing. But yeah, minor league baseball, if let's say this lockout goes into April, which is possible, based on how negotiations have been going, it's minor league attendance is going to go up.
And then on top of that, it does this whole, jumble mix here with your farm system. Like you just mentioned, the 40 guys can't be there. Now you got to fill out a AAA roster with the guys that you have. That could lead to some guys getting, rush assignments. That could lead to some prospects who really aren't ready for AAA, but just the Mets don't want to screw up, like getting thrown into the fire. And let's just, Manfred, can you just end it, please?
Hey, listen,
Stop stalling.
maybe by the time this episode airs, the lockout will be over.
That's true. That's a potential. We're recording this on February 8th. It's going to air on the 18th. 10 days. So 10 days. Manfred, make me edit this part out of the conversation. That is my dare to Rob Manfred. Thank you as always, Jordan, for joining me. You can follow his work over on social media with Josh Finkelstein at Locked On Mets. You can follow him on Twitter at Mets fan since '02. Find his Facebook page. We are Mets Believers. And check them out with us again next week as we will be into our top 10s. We'll go 10 through 6 next week, and then we'll close it out with the top 5 prospects in the Mets system. It's going to be fun to continue to go through this, and hopefully by the time we get to that, it'll be spring training baseball, but we'll see. That's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q and handicap expert Lee Sterling. Locked On Bets is where you want to go for all your daily gambling needs. You can follow Locked On Bets wherever you get podcasts.